In Kenya's capital, Nairobi, a promise of new beginnings stirs hope and uncertainty in the city's older states.
Three families from Woodley estate are tonight counting losses after a night of demolition by the Nairobi County government.
Watu wengi husema kwamba hii miradi huanzishwa kusaidia wananchi wa chini wa Nairobi. Lakini unakuta wakati mwingine nafika inakuwa kwamba wale walionavyo bado ndio watachukua hizo nyumba tu.
Maana tu sasa mmoja umechagua mahasla.
Haiwezi endelea hivyo.
No. Wale ambao walikuwa hapo lazima wapatie maombi.
Hatukushughulika tutafute mahali mtu ajenge au mahali ataacha watoto wake. Ataenda wapi?
Housing project wenye kuileta wangeliipeleka mahali pengine.
The promise of redevelopment for some is seen as a threat by others who have questions and fears that they are about to be displaced.
Have you been given access to the process that formulated the proposal through invitation to the county government office to participate in creating policies? Mumeitwa.
The question is, how can development move forward without sacrificing the rights and legacy of those who've called these places home for so long?
Rico power, Rico viva.
Within Eastlands in Nairobi County lies a section of historic neighborhoods built soon after independence to house the African working class. These early settlements for public servants like railway workers and city council staff remain as echoes of the city's evolving history. Recognizing the poor living conditions of the African workers, Israel Somen, the Jewish mayor of Nairobi elected in 1955, saw the opportunity to improve their lives by constructing decent housing units for the city dwellers. Jericho Estate, built in the 1960s with support from the Israeli government, has long been home for many families. Named after the biblical city of Jericho in Israel, one of the oldest cities in the world, the estate is divided into two sections: Jericho Lumumba, commonly known as Lumush, and Ofafa Jericho, often referred to as Jeri Yachini or Lower Jericho, which is home to the Jericho Social Hall.
Now, this is Jericho, Lumumba. Initially, this land was open. It was completely open. You could see from the last house to, in fact, you would see all the way to the road. That was how it was. In fact, and that is what that brought this community thing. What it was that we would identify a Jericho person in town. Unaona tu mtu anatembea ama yuko kwa mat, unaona huyu jamani wa Jeri, huyu madheni wa Jeri. That's how it was. We knew each other. Okay, that has slowed down a bit, but we still have that culture. I've stayed here since 2009. But before that, I was brought up in Lumumba, which is about 400 meters from here, where my mom still stays. Hi, Mom. How are you?
Wambua Munguti, a longtime resident of Jericho and chairman of the Joint Jericho Residents Association, has a deep connection to the estate, rooted in his upbringing and sense of community, which inspired his return to this neighborhood.
Hey, Saseni, mko fiti eh? Fiti, nimekuona.
And I fought hard to find and get a house in Jericho. It was not easy, but there was a tenant who had been transferred to Kisumu. And therefore, this house actually was not benefiting her because the city council would not allow them to rent them out. So we discussed. and went to the offices of the Nairobi County government, and we exchanged, transfer, official. I have my own file, the card was put into my name, and I really enjoyed that bit.
The estates are home to people from different cultural backgrounds, and its unique identity comes from its rich historical and political significance, which has played a key role in shaping Nairobi's evolution over the years.
Katika nyumba hizi nafurahi sana, manake niliona maendeleo na watu walioishi hapa wengi na wakumbuka. Nitaanza kwanza na mpiganiaji uhuru mashuhuri Bildad Kagia, ambaye dadangu alikuja kuolewa na kijana wake Getao. Aliishi hapo Lumumba. Tulikuwa na Fred Kubai, aliishi Lumumba. Tulikuwa na Ochieng Oneko, aliishi Lumumba.
Armstrong Sobaeni, much like Wambua and many other residents, carries immense pride in his roots and the strong sense of community that has defined his life here. But now, this cherished past is under threat.
Estates in Nairobi County are expected to vacate their premises for what the county terms as the Nairobi Urban Renewal and Regeneration Project.
The County of Nairobi, formerly the City Council, owns 17,000 housing units on prime land, and all this are due for redevelopment. Over 100,000 new housing units are expected to be produced to accommodate over 650,000 residents.
The Nairobi County government's ambitious plan to build affordable housing stock aims to meet the growing demand for decent housing, reduce overcrowding, and improve living conditions in the city. Patrick Analo, the Chief Officer for Urban Development and Planning in Nairobi County and an advisor to the Governor on lands and planning matters, explains why the need for proper housing has never been greater.
County government of Nairobi, under the leadership of Governor Sakaja, has a duty and a responsibility to provide for housing for the urban population, the 5 million people who live in the city of Nairobi. We are ranked as one of the fifth fastest growing cities in Africa and among the top 20 in the world. Because of that, there's a very huge demand for housing, and in this case, decent housing, as has been detailed in our constitution. So in responding to the housing challenge within the city of Nairobi, the county government of Nairobi made a decision to try and redevelop those estates so that we can accommodate a bigger population. But also many of those houses have, they have grown old. They are really dilapidated, and they need to be reconstructed.
On paper, the program offers a hopeful future for many with modern housing. But for those who have lived here for decades, the promise of renewal feels like a gamble, one that could come at a heavy cost.
Niliacha kazi 22 years back. Nakaa hapa ndani ya nyumba. Nilitoka watoto wangu wakiwa hawajaingia secondary. Na nimesomesha, kile kidogo nilipata nimejaribu. Mimi ni mshonaji, hata unaweza kuona sweta inakaa pale. Nimeshona. Ili watoto wangu wasome. Kwa hiyo sina kitu. Sasa kama wakisema wajenge nyumba, wataitisha deposit. 1,000,000 niliona kwa WhatsApp, sijui 1,000,000, sijui 2,000,000, 3,000,000 nitatoa wapi? Hiyo si ni kunifukuza, ni kuniweka kwa kaburi before my time. Wakati nimechoka na pumzika.
As one of the oldest members of the Jericho community, 86-year-old Priscilla Wanjiku, a single mother of 2, has treasured her one-bedroom house for more than 60 years.
Hiyo ni certificate ya Mother's Union. Hapo ni my sister, my follower. Huyu ndio mweupe kama mimi.
Her life has been closely tied to these walls, but now she often finds herself holding on to the memories of the past as the future feels increasingly fragile.
Wakati niliingia Jericho 62, kulikuwa kuzuri sana, very clean. Kulikuwa na wafanyikazi wa kanzo wanatufiagilia, fence inatengenezwa, dustbin ziko, tunapigiwa madawa tusiwe na wadudu, mende nini, na tukawa tunafurahia maisha sana sana sana. Lakini ghafla tu kufika mwaka wa 87 mambo yalibadilika, tukaondolewa usafi, Kanzu ikahama na watu wake wote. Tulikuwa tunaletewa dustbin, hakuna, tukaambiwa tujitegemee. Tulikuwa na security. Hii nyumba opposite ilikuwa na askari, usiku kitu kitokea tu mara moja tumekingwa, tukaondolewa. Sasa tukakaa kama kondoo wasio na wenyewe. Tumevumilia mpaka wakati huu. Fikiria niliingia nikiwa na 23 years. Now I'm running to 86. Kwa hiyo Jericho nimekaa nikiwa mtu mpaka nimekuwa kitu.
Eastland's history traces back to Nairobi's early days as a railway town and later a colonial capital where African laborers lived in tents behind railway sheds or outside the railway town. The area's name comes from the fact that it lies to the east of the Nairobi River. Africans who lived in areas such as Kileleshwa's Maskini area were turned into squatters, and their new European landlords who bought the land from the crown moved to evict them. The basis for this was the Nairobi Town Planning Scheme, which forbade Africans from living anywhere west of Racecourse Road, which runs parallel to the Nairobi River for part of its course. As a result, many Africans who had lived all across what was now Nairobi had to move to the eastern side of the river to estates such as Kamukunji, Pumwani, Kariokor and Pangani due to the lack of permanent housing. By the 1920s, after Nairobi had become a settler capital, strict racial zoning was introduced. Europeans lived in the cooler, more elevated areas to the north and west, while Asians settled in parklands Ngara and Pangani. Meanwhile, Africans who made up 60% of the population were crowded into Eastlands, which mainly consisted of reclaimed swampland. The result was a densely populated and chaotic living situation for the poorly paid and marginalized majority. According to the World Bank's 2017 Kenya Economic Update report, housing unavailable and unaffordable, the country faces an annual housing demand of 150,000 to 200,000 units, but only about 50,000 units are supplied each year.
So you have almost more than half of the city's population living in slums and informal settlements, something that is against the human rights. Actually, is against the Bill of Rights. When you drive around the city, you see most of the areas that are advancing in terms of provision of housing. It's for the middle income. Those are the kind of estates you're seeing coming up in sections of the city, Pangani, Upper Hill, Kileleshwa, Westlands. Those are mainly catering for the needs of the middle class and the rich. But the urban poor, who are the majority, and they play a very critical role in pushing our city, are not provided for. So this affordable housing program is going to be very key in reducing the number of people who move into slums and informal settlements.
The Urban Renewal Plan for Eastlands targets 18 government estates, including Kaloleni, Makongeni, Botela, Shaurimoyo, Bahati, Maringo, Lumumba, Jericho, Jerusalem, and others. The redevelopment will take different approaches. Some estates will undergo selective upgrades and renovations, while others, like Jericho, will be completely demolished and rebuilt to make way for new structures. But beyond the blueprints and construction plans is a major dispute between the county government and estate residents, one that hinges on the question of ownership rights.
Nyuma yake ilikuwa imeandikwa kwamba baada ya miaka 20 na 25 nyumba hizi zitakuwa za waliokuwa katika vile vyumba.
My mom stays 2-bedroomed, very good, has compound the front and another compound behind. Those ones were given 25 years.
Their contention is, and you have heard the governor say, that that land belongs to the county of Nairobi. They are saying that land does not belong to the county of Nairobi. It belongs to the residents of those 3 estates.
So, what is the real story behind these conflicting claims? Is there an untold agreement, or is the truth something entirely different?
What is important is this. These residents of Nairobi, they want houses. They want decent living. If you look at the state of many of these houses, they are deplorable, Chair. We've done improvements in many. If you go to Huruma, we've painted the houses, we've done improvements in Kariobangi South, but the urban redevelopment gives them an opportunity to get a house and own it, Chair.
On the 27th of February 2024, Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja appeared before the Senate Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing to address concerns regarding the Urban Renewal Plan for Nairobi County's older states.
The county government of Nairobi have the titles for Ofafa-Jericho, Jericho-Lumumba, Ofafa-Maringo, and Maringo or not. It's just something that I need clarification on.
The land belongs to the county. It's well known. National government or the county government historically never got titles until the evolution of land grabbing came in.
If you cost that land, it is one of the most valuable assets that the people of Nairobi hold. And the question of even titling of these lands is a matter that came up before the committee. Luckily for us, the Senate proceedings are usually covered live. So you'll see those clips when we asked him, does the county government of Nairobi have titles to those properties, the estates that they are building? The answer was no, you know. So those are some of the concerns that you need to address those issues so that you build public trust.
Zikijengwa, ulikuwa unaambiwa uende utembee. Unazunguka kwa hizo nyumba zinazojengwa. Kwa kuwa mimi nilipenda sana nyumba ya mwisho. Unachukua hiyo namba mahali walikuwa wanaandika, imeandikwa hata hapa nje. Unachukua hiyo namba, unapeleka office Eastlands kwa nyumba za kanzu, unapewa kadi. Sasa hiyo nyumba inakuwa yako. Fikiria ukiahidiwa kitu, si unasikia raha? Si tukawa comfortable, hakuna mtu alifikiria mambo ya kuweza kutoka Jericho. Lakini wale waliopata bahati kama kina Uchengi Oneko aliyeishi hapa juu ya nyumba yangu, alikuwa secretary wa Kenyatta, hao walihama wakapata mahali pakubwa, lakini wengine tukabakia tumetosheka kuishi hapa Jericho.
Hakukuwa na title deed isipokuwa ni hicho kijikitabu ambacho kilikuwa na maelezo kwa upande wa nyuma. Kwa hivyo mimi naona ilikuwa ni jambo nzuri, na kuna wakati ilifika waliomiliki kadi hizo waliombwa kuzirudisha. Waliporudisha ilikuwa watapewa kadi nyingine, lakini kadi waliopewa sasa badala ya ile original, hii ambao walipewa ilikuwa haina maelezo kadi original iliyokuwa nayo. Kwa hivyo hatujui kwa nini watu waliitishwa kadi, manake ilikuwa unaambiwa ikiwa hutarudisha nyumba utanyang'anywa. Kwa hivyo ilikuwa ni njia ya kurudisha zile kadi ambazo zilikuwa na mkataba. Unaona, ilikuwa na agreement.
Normally when we have these meetings with different estates and people say I am the owner of house number 1 owner, people forget your tenants. But because you've sat there so long, you feel you're an owner, you know, of this land. In fact, one of the estates, they have what we call urban myth, urban legend, that when the Israelis came to support Kenya in building this, they said after 22 years, we end up owning this. And there is an agreement somewhere in City Hall. And so from the time I was senator, I've asked them, where is this agreement?
The Nairobi Metropolitan Service Improvement Project, Urban Renewal of Eastlands, includes 3 volumes: the survey report, the Urban Renewal Plan, and the annexes and appendices. In Volume 1, dated 4th March 2019, it is noted that the Israeli government handed over uprooting estate and Jericho Lumumba estate to the Kenyan government as a trustee for the tenants for 22 and 25 years respectively. During this period, the occupants were to pay for the houses, after which they would assume ownership.
There was a chairman by the name of Anthony Kimani Maina, who was involved with the Jericho Welfare Group. They were pursuing this thing, following what they had been told by former city county government workers that these houses were supposed to be ours. So they went, and one of those officials working with the NMS decided to give them that link. And he told them, please go and read. Please go and read. We were not going to read, but we read that book. We read those reports, this report. And this report, written by the Nairobi city, you can see their emblem there, here, states clearly that these houses from Maringo, Jerusalem, Ofafa Jericho, Jericho Lumumba were supposed to revert back to the tenants. When we got this information, the late Anthony Maina Kimani, he passed on, organized public meetings, and we held those public meetings at the Jericho Social Hall, and then he shared this report with them. Immediately after sharing this report with the residents, it was taken off the link, and it was replaced with another 2A, trying to smother the details that are in this volume. And you know, writing a report like this, you're talking about these old houses, you need to have a history. They removed that history, so that if you got volume 2A, there's no history of where it all began.
Despite the residents' long-standing claims that Jericho estate houses were to become theirs after some years of tenancy, the county government of Nairobi denies any knowledge of such an agreement between the Israeli and Kenyan governments.
We've done everything possible, including even writing to the embassy, to have a copy of that agreement. None of it has been availed. What I would say, the concerns of the residents, the issue of ownership. You know, it's human nature when a new idea is being brought. There will always be some reluctance to support it. And also, I think you need to remember that since 1992, national government or county governments have never put up public housing projects. So from 1992 up to date, we've never had any program that is providing for housing for either civil servants or the urban poor. So these people, they have very valid concerns to be concerned about ownership. But the program has addressed that. One, His Excellency the Governor has guaranteed them that at the point of groundbreaking, there will be a very clear agreement between the what I would call the project affected persons and the county government and the developer. There will be documentation to the effect that guarantees them the first units that will be completed will be allocated to the current tenants who are the original owners.
Watu wa Jeri, watu wa Eastlands, Urban Renewal ya Nairobi County. Kama ulikuwa umekaa kwa nyumba ya Kanjo ambayo iko kwa hiyo line ya Urban Renewal, that house juu labda budako alikuwa analipa baba yako, your grandfather, mmekaa kwa nyumba, Maringo, wherever it is, that house will translate to yours.
So at least for the people of Jericho, they say that the county government does not own that land. And I wrote to the governor, the correspondences are here, following that meeting with Jericho. And I told him that because of the things that the people of Jericho were raising, they were raising critical issues. I wrote to him and asked him to stop that project and ensure that there is proper consultations with the people of Jericho, of Fafa Jericho. And I'm happy the governor took it positively and agreed to sit down and begin conversations with the people of Jericho. But somewhere along the line, those those discussions broke down. The people of Fafa were very frustrated because they were unable to get basic documents. So for instance, this contention on handing over the land to the tenants after 25 years is supposed to be contained in a document, and that document nobody can find. So finally, when we brought the question before the Senate Housing Committee, because I'm a member of the Senate Housing Committee, I was able to convince the committee to conduct an inquiry into the entire urban regeneration project. We were able to have the governor present one day, and the question was put very bluntly to him: does an agreement exist between the county government of Nairobi and the Israeli government to hand these houses to the tenants after 25 years? And he said it under oath that there is no such agreement.
But it is not there in the county. And if it is not there, we can't create an agreement now. Chair, you have the powers to actually summon it from the government of Israel if it exists, or if anybody has ever seen such an agreement.
So, although it was heartbreaking for the people of Ufafa, Jericho and Lumumba, at least they got an answer. They got an answer. Now they know that that agreement does not exist, at least according to the county government. But I am sure they have not given up. They are instituting other mechanisms to be able to find the truth and enforce their rights.
Jericho Joint Committee, can the chairman please stand up? Langu si swali, ni ombi.
On 31st October 2023, residents of Jericho were invited for a special public participation by the county government of Nairobi held at Charter Hall. The meeting was intended to further community discussions on the Urban Renewal project and encourage dialogue.
Mimi ni waziri wa ardhi, nyumba na mpangilio wa mji. Mpangilio hiyo yote tunataka tuwe na nyinyi pamoja.
But as the meeting went on, it became evident that cracks were forming.
Leo hatukuwa tumekuja public participation. You did not follow Nairobi County Government protocol. 3 days, watu wa nyumbani. Is that fair? No. Watu wa Jericho, is that fair? No. Now, do the people invited here for this event and the people who assembled here agree that they have been supplied with relevant documents and data and information to make a sound decision of the above objectives? No. And what criteria was applied to commence the development in Jericho as opposed to, for example, Woodley? Nani walikaa chini wakasema ianze Jericho? Ama uliitwa?
These went on.
This is very important. And hii ndio huangusha public participation.
And on. And on. Due to the short notice for this particular forum and other concerns, the meeting was eventually called off.
By a show of hands, would like to request the assembled people of Jericho whether they are ready to continue with this illegal process. No. In court. In court. In court. Respect the court.
This process is quite intense in terms of public participation. It is not like the same process you would take for if you want to put up your own house. The program will be implemented through a strategic phasing process. So we start with this so that we don't displace people who are currently living in the bungalows in those houses. We will focus first on doing housing in the open spaces. Once we complete, we move in people. Then now we can move to the second phase by bringing down those units which are are empty now because you've moved the first beneficiaries. Then we move in to do the second lot of houses in those areas.
The Kenyan Constitution upholds public participation as a key national value, requiring active engagement and genuine input from citizens in decision-making. This demands that officials establish accessible platforms for dialogue, gather feedback on proposed initiatives, and adapt policies to reflect the people's input. Yet, for the residents of Jericho, this principle has not been applied as laid out in the Constitution. They argue that the involvement in the redevelopment process has been inadequate, leaving many uninformed about critical developments and decisions that greatly impact their future.
Tunasikitika sana tukisikia kwamba eneo hili nyumba zitabomolewa. Ni sawa, lakini hatufurahii. Manake hapa ndio tulijua ni ushago kwetu na hakuna mahali pengine tutakapokwenda isipokuwa hapa. Sijui tutaenda wapi, ni ujirani gani huo sasa tutaenda kuanza upya. Tukifurushwa tutakuwa na shida sana. Manake wengi wetu watachukua familia na kuwa jamii ya mtaa ama barabarani. Wengi wetu wako na miaka 70. Nadhani kunao hata wamefika miaka 80. Itakuwa vigumu kupanda ghorofa hiyo na mambo mengi. Kwa hivyo ni watu watakuwa wengi sana ambao wamerudi katika ufukara wa barabarani. Nenda uulize, wengi hawana makwao. Ushagoni hapa.
Kumbuka wakati walianza kuandikisha boma langu. Kuna ilikuwa inaandikishwa kwa kanzu boma langu, sivyo? Niliandika mimi sichelewi. Alafu siku nyingine kajidai kwenda huko, niwaulize mambo ya boma yako hapa imefika wapi? Unajua bila nilijibiwa. Nani anaweza kupatia nyumba mzee kama wewe? Huyo kijana alinichoma na maneno, mimi sijarudi hapo tukuuliza tena.
We in the Senate Housing Committee have experiences with similar projects. One of the most notorious one, which we also conducted an inquiry, was Buxton Point development in Mombasa. The tenants there, their perception of the project was that they were going to be the first beneficiaries of those houses, and they were told they were being sold, that they were giving up the houses so that we can build affordable housing. Now, affordable housing, the word affordable means a lot of things to different people. What is affordable to you as a house is not necessarily affordable to somebody else or to me. So out of that experience, and in fact, in the inquiry for Buxton, one of the conclusions we made as a committee and the recommendations we made is that there has to be clarity on the rights of the people, the tenants who are living there, what exactly they can expect. Because you see, for them, they thought that first of all they would be given first priority, then they thought there was going to be a tenant purchase scheme where you continue to live in the unit similar to the one that you gave up, and then your rent goes towards purchase of the house, so that even if the rent was 3,000 shillings, you continue paying that amount until the time you will be able to meet the full cost, or until Jesus comes, whichever the first one happens. Buxton was one project, and it had caused so much pain and hue and cry. You imagine 13 estates similar to Buxton, and even larger, because if you take the total land area that is affected by the urban regeneration project, it is the biggest housing development being undertaken by a county government in this country. The people of Nairobi, the people who live in these estates, they are not opposed to the projects. All they need is to be involved, and because people are very suspicious, because it has happened before. We have had other projects where you come, then you get that the people who are benefiting from those houses are not the target people for why the project was done. So there are a lot of challenges. Key amongst them is a total lack of transparency. Yani ukora ni mingi sana in Nairobi.
Today, in Jericho, uncertainty hangs thick in the air. Their stories reflect a growing frustration and a sense of being overlooked as decisions are made around them. It's not just the fear of what's to come, it's the present and constant worry of losing their homes and livelihoods, living each day under the shadow of displacement.
Kitu nitafanya, nitawaambia tu wakitaka waje wanitoe wanizike hai.
Meanwhile, the county government paints a different picture of the situation at hand, one that doesn't seem to resonate with the residents' lived experiences.
watu wa Jeri, watu wa Eastlands, Urban Renewal ya Nairobi County, kama ulikuwa umekaa kwa nyumba ya Kanjo, mtalipa service charge. Wacha wengine wakuje walipe rent to own. But if you've been paying from 1940, 1960, hiyo mko mnalipa, I will translate it to ownership of those houses. Hiyo nimesema. Hizo ni nyumba zenu.
According to Nairobi Governor Sakaja, he and his cabinet approved a resolution under the Urban Renewal project to offer new houses to tenants who had been renting from the now defunct Nairobi City Council and subsequently to the Nairobi County Government.
I'm happy because he returned to engage the people of Woodley until they got to sign agreements with the county government, assuring them that they will get a unit similar to what they had given up, and they will be given first priority. It also provides that the rent that they have been paying from the time they occupied those houses is going to go and be credited towards purchase of the houses, that they will be given some money to look for alternative accommodation for the period of the construction.
In August 2024, during the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding with the residents of Woodley Estate, one of the areas designated for redevelopment, Sakaja announced that the county had compensated 43 tenants with 900,000 shillings each to assist with their temporary relocation. He further assured them that they would receive allotment letters for ownership of the new units once the project was completed.
If you look at the two estates that were done before, that is Jivanji and Pangani, no one was offered an apartment. No one. There's no government that has done that. Even the ones being done by the national government, no one is being given a house. What you're being given is a chance to start paying rent again to own the house in future.
Construction has already begun on 10 acres of the 100-acre Woodley estate, where the new development named 300 Woodley Village will transform the area by replacing 43 old units with over 1,900 modern housing units.
43 houses will provide for us 1,975 units. What government would be so greedy to want those 43 again to pay like the 1,900? Governments don't exist to make profit. Our work is not, we're not a business. Ours is to serve our people. The reason why this one must succeed ni kwa sababu hii ndio inatoa mfano kwa wale wengine.
It was a bit untidy to see that demolitions were being done at night, but at least in Woodley, you can say that after the process was restarted, there was a bit of consensus there, and I believe even some people tried to go to court to stop the process, but the court gave the okay.
Phase 1 of Nairobi's Urban Renewal and Regeneration project was initiated in 2015-2016, targeting the redevelopment of 8 estates: Bahati, Jericho, Lumumba, Bondeni, Maringo, Ziwani, Embakasi and Woodley. However, by 2020, only 2 projects, Pangani and Jivanji, had been awarded and launched. To date, they remain the only ones with notable progress. As of December 2024, it was reported to the Nairobi County Government's Committee on Lands, Planning and Housing that the Jivanji Estate project was at 46%, with completion expected by September 2026. The Pangani project, on the other hand, was scheduled for completion in February 2025. Under Phase 2, the county government advertised tenders for the redevelopment of 9 estates: Maringo, Bahati, Jericho, Lumumba, Bondeni, Ziwani, Embakasi Village, Kariobangi North, and Woodley.
Some of those estates were started before the current administration came in. So when we got into elections, the partners, closed down the sites in order to wait for engagement with the new administration. That indeed has delayed the completion, period. But that matter has been sorted out. I think very soon they'll be resuming the works at the sites.
The leadership of this country has done itself a big disservice by eroding the public trust. As you know, the Pangani project was initiated under the former governor Sonko. And part of the problem was, if you go to visit that Pangani project, first of all, it's a monstrosity. Even the people of Afa, if you go and see those houses that were built in the 50s, like you could see that this is a house that was built for human habitation. If you go into those jail cells they're calling affordable houses in Pangani, you'll be very embarrassed. Nobody wants to live in such conditions. It looks like a jail cell from the US or Mexico, you know? And the people of Afa were asking me, even you, if it was you, Sifuna, would you leave a house like this that has space for my kids, they have amenities, everything is there, you go and live in a cell block. And that is part of the conversations we were saying. Even the residents need to be given an input in even the design of the houses themselves. Yeah, because people want, if you are saying you will restore them to as close as possible the situation where they were, but a bit better, then you can't offer them a lesser product just because you want to take up the land. And the question of even titling of these lands is a matter that came up before the committee. Luckily for us, the Senate proceedings are usually covered live. So you'll see those clips when we asked him, does the county government of Nairobi have titles to those properties, the estates that they are building? The answer was no, you know. So those are some of the concerns that you need to address those issues so that you build public trust. As I told you, many Kenyans are not necessarily opposed to development.
A report on investigations into the Pangani and Jivanji affordable housing projects presented by the Planning Committee to the Nairobi City County Assembly on December 4, 2024, revealed that the title deed for Pangani Estate was unaccounted for, with county executive officials unable to verify its status or ownership at the time. In April 2024, the Nairobi County Assembly had approved a motion allowing Technofin Kenya Limited, the private developer of the Pangani affordable housing project, to use the title deed as collateral for a Kenya Commercial Bank loan. However, on 14 November 2024, the developer failed to appear before the Planning Committee to provide transparency on the project. But following public petitions, the Environment and Lands Court halted the move. The report also revealed that the Jivanji title deed had been used by Jabavu Village Limited to secure a 1.9 billion shillings loan from the National Bank of Kenya. A few weeks later, the Nairobi County government refuted claims that the title deeds were missing. Officials clarified that the Pangani title deed was secure and held by Muriu, Mungai and Co advocates representing the special purpose vehicle managing the project.
If you do not know what your resources are and how to organize them, it doesn't matter how many skyscrapers you do, because in the long term, you will not be able to sustain them. Because, I mean, you will have skyscrapers without people who are able to afford to rent them or to buy them. And that's the risk that we have.
I've mentioned two facts, that this is referred to as a low-income area. And I've also told you that the rate of unemployment here is very high. The government should concentrate on that bit of the economy where they are creating that enabling environment for people to advance in their businesses and therefore create job opportunities for our residents to go and work. When we have our residents working, we have no problem. But right now, we are looking at a situation where we are going to be placed in affordable housing schemes and there will be a maintenance cost.
The estates that, the houses, that is 70%, the houses that will be set aside for the county government of Nairobi in order to, to sell them or to give them to the sitting tenants and other people the county may consider. The management of those particular houses will still be a responsibility of the housing department. In some of the houses, upon discussion with the tenants, they either agree to sublet some of the components of the services. In others, you find they are running the entire, service maintenance and management. So the fee, I think, will be very nominal. The housing typology in Woodley and the socio-economic status of the people in Woodley is different from the Kariobangi civil servants housing scheme. So yes, constant is that there will be compensation, there must be compensation, and it varies from one scheme to another, and that is a product of public participation between the county government and the residents of those specific schemes.
Kuna mtu Kenya ama Nairobi hata waipata nafasi ya kuishi kwa apartment ambayo iko na maji, iko na stima, kuna playground na kuna unajua mazingira mema, kuna hata ipata nafasi hiyo kama sio hizi project ambazo tunafanya kama county.
Improving housing is at the heart of the affordable housing and renewal projects, but it comes with its share of challenges. Many of the existing homes are old and in poor condition, making them due for replacement. However, with the likely involvement of profit-driven private investors, there is a concern that the new homes could end up being too expensive for the tenants to afford. Balancing these issues is crucial to ensuring that the project meets the needs of those it's meant to serve.
When we look at the issue of affordable housing, it was pushed down Kenyans' throats. Very few of us agreed with that notion because we felt that there is no clear roadmap in terms of how the right holders would be able to benefit at the end. We cannot commodify land and focus on the pecuniary nature of land and ignore the non-pecuniary nature of land. Because land is our identity, land is our sense of belonging, it is a generational gift. Those are the non-pecuniary aspects of land. So the ongoing affordable housing projects, there should be some form of sensitization that brings the right holder on board. Not imparted conversations, because what I've seen with this administration, they make decisions in the boardroom and then come impose those decisions on right holders.
Tunaendelea na kuomba tu kumwambia Mungu tusaidie. Wanaambia mami Mungu atatuonyesha la kufanya. Sasa utafanya nini? Hawana la kufanya. Unajua sisi nafikiri tulilala kidogo miaka yetu. Hatukufikiria. Hiyo ndio makosa tulifanya sisi kama wazazi ambao tulizaliwa 30s 40s huko. Hatukufikiria juu yetu wenyewe. We were thinking of our community, our relatives. Sasa wakati unakuja kurealize, unakuta umechelewa.
Na leo wakianza kutujengea hayo magorofa, sisi tulio ndani tutaenda wapi? Na wengi hatutaki kuishi kwenye gorofa. Watadistribute hayo manyumba namna gani? Itakuwa vigumu.
As Senator of Nairobi, I know we have problems with housing. My party leader, the Honorable Raila Odinga, is the person who tried to clear our slums through the slum upgrading project. It is something that we actually believe in. But the fears of the residents and their concerns have to be addressed. So like right now, the calls we are getting from places like Mukuru, where the Mukuru slum upgrading project is nearing completion, is will there be equity in allocation of those houses? Will those houses end up in the hands of people who actually lived in Mukuru, or are they going to be allocated to the people who have money? The same thing in Langata, in Soweto B. That is a genuine concern, because they have seen it before, even in allocation of market stalls. When a market is built, the people who are in the market are kicked out and you find new people coming in to get stalls. So it is not an idle concern, because the leadership of the country has behaved in such a way that the ordinary mwananchi does not trust them. And that is part of the problem.
Article 43 of the Constitution of Kenya guarantees every individual the right to adequate and accessible housing. This is further reinforced by the social pillar of Kenya's Vision 2030, which prioritizes providing quality, affordable housing for low-income citizens. Although most of Kenya's population still lives in rural areas, more people are moving to cities, and by 2050, it's expected that half of the country's population will be living in urban areas.
So when people speak about their right to that land and to the exclusion of everybody else, I think they are also dishonest. They are not fair enough to think that you are entitled to your 10 by 10 in a space that could actually house 500 families if we were to build high-rise units is, to say the least, a very selfish and unfortunate way of looking at things. If people were to be fair, they would accept that cities cannot remain, in their past. They must be redeveloped, and every city is redeveloped. And that even if they have entitlements, their entitlements do not supersede the entitlements of other citizens.
While Patrick highlights the importance of development that benefits all, not just a few, in Jericho, residents continue to defend their rights by challenging the redevelopment in court, revealing the tension between progress and fairness.
Jericho power! Jericho viva!
Viva! What we have done, we have decelerated the speed under which the Nairobi County government was getting involved in the development of that urban plan. And we felt that we needed to ask for an injunction, which we got in a less costly manner, because it was stated that the status quo be maintained. Because we have a case in court, it's fair, it's justifiable. Power, sovereign power, belongs to the citizens, and we can choose to exercise that power directly or through our elected representatives. For this one, we have chosen to exercise this power given to us by the Constitution of Kenya directly.
Change can often be brutal, and it's easier to choose the comfort of what we know over the unknown. The past may be familiar and even comforting, but what if the future holds something better? In Jericho, the redevelopment of all the estates is a nightmare for many. But the question remains, can they embrace the change, or will they cling to the past?
The residents are not against the redevelopment. What they want is that the agreement to be recognized. Let the agreement be recognized that these houses belong to the residents, and then after that, we can negotiate. We can sit down and negotiate. Once we've got the certification now, rightfully, that these houses belong to us, as they rightfully should. After that, now we can sit down and now discuss.
In the next episode, we return to Westlands and South B in Nairobi, two neighborhoods where forceful evictions and demolitions disrupted lives and livelihoods.
I have worked to buy this house. It wasn't very easy. So I'm not giving it up on it. And I'm going to have it back. Wait for me, I know I have it back.
Unapiga picha. Kama iko kugopa, then you should be worried. If you don't have anything to worry, then you wouldn't worry.
2 years later, what has changed? What hasn't? And what does it say about land justice in Kenya today?
We've been out of this place for 2 years until today, 2024, is when we are back to our premises. I mean, It's shocking to see what we found.
It seems that Kenya is run by goons and not by police.